the traditional enemies of ancient Egypt and the traditional number of enemies that Egypt had that they conquered went from approximately about say 9 enemies or so up to 10 to even 24 enemies of Egypt traditionally. So what you see here is a pedestal of Ramses II for Wi-Fi. Okay, so it's a pedestal that basically held, it has the titles of Ramses II. It was discovered in Egypt, of course. And what happened, what you see over here is what I want to focus on. And this is an article I can give you guys. You can learn a lot about the enemies of Egypt. It has the 9 enemies of Egypt, which is the traditional number, and it's known as the 9 bows. And each is a person that and the tribes, there were tribes that lived in Egypt and outside of Egypt. So Ramses indicated this. This was very traditional for Egyptians to do this. Many pharaohs did it as well. You can find it all over Egypt. What it looks like is pretty much is a captive that's sitting on top of a cartouche and the name of the enemy on the inside. And we'll explain to you who these people are and where they're from. Traditionally, there's 9, but it could have gone as far up to 10 sometimes, 11, or even by the time of Darius I during the Persian conquest, you're looking at approximately 24. But we stick with the 9 traditional enemies. This is an article I could share with you. There's a lot of information about the enemies of Egypt. So I'm going to show you another picture. I don't know why it turned gray, but okay. There we go. So this image here is from Abu Simbel. This is also, just showing you an example, showing you a captive that's bound and showing you where his region is based on the flower or the plant and the name of the conquered. You could see their names over here. This is at Abu Simbel. So this is from also the mortuary temple of Ramses II. And you see the 9 enemies again over here. Some places have 10, some places have more, but traditionally it's been 9. So here's what we're going to do. I'm not going to go through the image too much, but what I'll do is I'll show you who the enemies are, and that'll be the end of the video, and I'll leave it up to questions. And if you want this article that I'm going to show you right now, right over here, and we'll basically share you the article, just DM me and I'll send it to you. So, or you can find it online. The article is known as from the Journal of Archaeology and History, Technical University of, I believe it's from Romania. And it's called Ancient Egypt's History and Archaeology. All right, so here we go. So let's discuss the 9 bows. I'm not going to go too much in detail, but if you're interested, it'll describe a little bit about where else you can find the enemies. This describes the bows. It tells you the hieroglyphs on there and tells you what they all mean. And basically the Ramses, his titles, and so on and so forth. But I want to discuss the enemies. So here they are. We're going to go through the enemies of... I'm going to make sure first I find the hieroglyphs for it. No, we're too far down. The 9 enemies are right over here. All right, so we're going to start with the 9 enemies from over here. For a second, yeah. So here we are. This is now the description on the pedestal of the 9 enemies. I'm going to read as well as you can read. So the 9 enemies of Egypt, the traditional, were shown as 9 bows. You can see that a bow, like a composite bow, not a regular bow, but a composite bow. You see how it's shaped? This is how basically a composite bow. So you have 9 of them. And they were known, the composite bows, or the enemies were known as the traditional enemies. The traditional enemies of Egypt. And now, let's go to the first tribe. Now, I want to indicate to you something. When you know that a tribe or an enemy lives in Egypt, they just have their name. But when an enemy is outside of Egypt, they have this stick-like figure. You see it? That stick indicates a foreigner, someone who's outside of the borders of Egypt. All right. So who were the first tribes of Egypt? And I'll try to go back and forth and show it to you. If the way it depends if they actually did it that way, whether this image... Let's see if I can find the first one. The first... Yeah, I think it's this one right over here. It's a little hard to see. But here are the enemies of Egypt. So we're not going to go through this image. I'm just showing everybody who's just joined in. These are the traditional 9 enemies of Egypt from Abu Simbel, the mortuary temple of Ramses II. But you can find them everywhere, these traditional appearing looking enemies. All right, so here we go. The first enemy, it says it right here. The first tribe, and it depends how they were set up based on importance during whichever time period, but here they are. The first tribe, known as the Hau Nabu. You could see the pronunciation here, the word Hau, which is pluralized with Nabu right over here. All right. They are the foremost foreigners who were related to the foreign countries located north coast of Egypt. So they were in Egypt on the north coast and in the Aegean islands along the Mediterranean. So they were in the Mediterranean area. Now, the second people, known over here, you could see the hieroglyph. You see a leg and a bird's foot, but you'll see which type of foot, and with a stick for foreigner, and the land, a desert land. This is known as the Shetiyu tribe. This second tribe of people, the people of an area belonging to the land of Nubia. So they were in the south of Egypt, or the inhabitants near the third cataract, which is an area that changes the speed of water in the rapids of the water, in the south of Egypt. All right. Now, there are many interpretations of who they were and how they were pronounced, but let's continue. Means the people of Sat. So let's just keep reading it. Okay, so Verkuter, which is basically an Egyptologist or an academic, thinks that it's Shat or Shatu means the people of Shat. Wenig, another author, and Uphill, two different academics say that in the same opinion, but there was also, it could be read as Shet or Shatiu, which means the people of Sat, who are generally associated with the desert and are mainly attached to the ostriches. So do you hear? This is very important. Ostriches, you know, if the ostrich, it's a type of bird. I'm sure you all know what it is. It's a big bird that can't fly but can run really fast. Well, right over here is the foot of an ostrich. So that this associates them with the animal ostrich, foreign land, and the desert. So that's the second tribe. The third tribe is known as the Ta. Here, let's get over closer. The third tribe is known as the Ta Shemeu. The Ta, which is a Ta means the land. This is the word for south and desert. And this is generally are the residents of the southern, you can see the word south, of southern Egypt are mainly, we're going to skip over here, the citizens of Upper Egypt. Uphill point that Egyptians were considered inhabitants of Upper and Lower Egypt among the population, should be controlled and so on and so forth, but they're Upper Egypt area people. So they were a tribe in Egypt and dwelled in the remote zones which located in the east of the Nile Valley, or mainly between the Nile Valley and the Red Coast. All right, let's move on. And they were also inhabiting the Oasis, so far off water deposits in different parts of the lands. All right, the fourth tribe or enemy of Egypt was the people of the Saheti Iyam. They are known generally as the dwellers of the desert oasis and are recorded in the Nine Bows list and are mainly related to the dwellers of Siwa Oasis, the Siwa Oasis, which is well known for being the place where Alexander got deified by Alexander the Great. The fifth tribe is the Ta Mehu. So Ta Mehu. This fifth tribe, or the enemies of Egypt, resides in the delta, so the north part by the Mediterranean, or northern Egypt, and mainly the citizens of Lower Egypt. So they encompass the entire Lower Egypt, this tribe. The sixth tribe was known as the Pechtiu Shu. You can see here, Pechtiu and then Shu. All right. These are considered barbarians in general and are mostly nomads or Bedouins dwelling in the eastern desert of Arabian desert between the River Nile and the Red Sea coast. The seventh enemy or tribe of Egypt are the people of Technu. Sorry. You see the stick again? It means they're foreigners. They're outside of Egypt, right? And the Nu, which is 1, 2, 3, and basically it's the three pots for the pronunciation of Nu. The dwellers of the west and southwest of Egypt. So they were west and southwest of Egypt and are definitely Libyans. So they are known as the Libyans, the Technu. Let's see if I can find you the Libyans on this list here. Are they in here? You could see the ostrich people. Remember I showed you before the people of the ostrich? So there they are. And the Technu, there could be written differently depending on the hieroglyph. It looks like it's not in here in this list. Yeah, it's not in this list, but it's okay. Now, they had different names. Now, this is interesting. The seventh tribe, or the enemies of Egypt, were definitely Libyans, who were divided into 4 categories. They were known as the Tehenu. There was also the Temahu, the Ribu or Libu. So you can see Libu or Ribu because the R can be pronounced as an L in Greco-Roman period. And the Meshwesh. So these are the 4 divisions of the Libyans, who are actually considered one of the 4 major conquered enemies of Egypt. Now, the 8th tribe is the people of, you'll say it here, Iuntiu Seti. Iuntiu Seti. Who are these people? These are the residents of Nubia as well, or the natives of the land of Nubia, and are in particular dwellers of the southern desert. So they were the people that encompassed all of Nubia. Finally, the 9th people, or the traditional enemies of Egypt, were known as the Mentiu Nu Setet. The Mentiu Nu Setet, and here they are. The Mentiu Setet, right? Setet, the Mentiu, this is all together. Mentiu, and then Setet. They are the nomadic ethnic group who lived in the northern eastern Egypt, as well as the Bedouins of Sinai, along with the Bedouins of Asia. The Asian nomads were divided also into 4 categories. Now remember, the most conquered or the most subjugated of all of Egypt's enemies were known as the Libyans, the Asiatics. These are the Asiatics, the 9th, right? And then there were the Nubians. So here you have the Libyans, the Nubians, and the Asiatics. You can even have Nubians over here too. I'm sorry, not there. Up, I missed it somewhere up here, the 5th or something. Yeah, the Nubians. All right, so you have the Nubians, the Libyans, and then down here you have the Asiatics. And the Asiatics, these are the 3 biggest ones you see everywhere, like captives, bound or tied up. You always see them all the time. And they come in 4 categories. They come as the Shasu, the Retinue, the Sejar, and the Hittites. The Hittites, remember, they're one of the most well-known enemies of Egypt, the Hittites, when they fought them in the Battle of Kadesh. And you can find this on the temple of Ramses II. And he indicates his battle with the Hittites. And you can see the Hittite, right? The Hittite are foreigners as well. Now, there were more than 9 tribes. Sometimes they found a 10th tribe, but that really depends on the period. And then if you go all the way to the Persian period by Darius I, you had 24 tribes. All right, so that's it. This is the only thing I really wanted to do is discuss the 9 enemies of Egypt, the 9 bows. They're known as the 9 bows. If anybody wants this article, by all means, DM me and I'll send it to you. And you can learn a little bit about the 9 enemies of Egypt. And we were using this image here as an example of showing you the 9 enemies traditionally carved with cartouches around them. So they look like enemies who are bound, and they have cartouches, and they just show you, you can see they're bound by the arms attached in the back, and then they're tied to a rope to each other. And these are the 9 traditional enemies of Egypt at Abu Simbel. But the reference of the enemies we use is actually in this article, and it's located here at the bottom. It's from the pedestal of Ramses II. And I'll show you a few pictures here so you could see. This is the pedestal. You could see the 9 enemies. These are the titles of Ramses. You can see his names and titles. The enemies again over here. It's a little faded, this one, but you could see a little bit over here. The 9 enemies bound and tied with the cartouches. And then you could see more of the titles, close-ups of Ramses, and of course the 9 enemies of Egypt again. Again, the same thing, just different perspectives. The unification of Egypt. You could see over here you have 2 unifying. This is Happy, the River Nile. He is representation of the River Nile. And you have the word here for unity. All right, and what it is basically they're tying it together with the papyrus and the lotus flower, and showing you that both Egypt, the 2 emblems of Upper and Lower Egypt, are unified. So basically, Ramses is unified the 2 lands by showing the depiction of Happy and the connection, and he has his titles and names over here. That's a bigger. And this is Ramses sitting down. You could see his leg, and that's the seat showing you his unification of Egypt. Again, you have the 9 bows one more time, the 9 enemies of Egypt. This is more of a proper, this is a little difficult to see, so someone drew it out so you could see. And then again, the individual characters. So let's go through them again. Remember the Ha-Nabu, the Shetiu, the the Shemeu, the Sektiu Iam, the Tamahu, the Pechtui Shu, the Techenu, the Ementiu Seti, and the Mentiu Nutsetet. So you see, these are the 9 enemies of Egypt, the traditional 9. And here they are again. You can see them properly written, so you can read them properly. They're the 10. Now, there was a 10th one, right? There was a 10th one. The one that we didn't cover from the pedestal, I think this one was refers to the pedestal. Let me see, 1, 2, 3. We have that one. This one. This one was not included in the pedestal. This was just an addition. So this was a 4. You could see here the 10 of them as opposed to the 9, but this was added as the 10th. So it depends on the ruling pharaoh and the period. And I think that's it. So that's it, everybody. That's the article. If you want to read more, it's not very long. It's 21 pages. It has a lot of references. It's not a published article, but it kind of gives you a little bit of the information. It says it here: the unpublished pedestal of Ramses II from Antonopolis would reference to the 9 bows of Egypt, or the 9 enemies of Egypt. And I'll show it to you again, the 9 enemies of Egypt, and that'll be the end of this. And if you have any questions, message me. I'm not really reading your comments right now. I'm just going through this. So if you ever want to know the hieroglyph for the 9 bows of Egypt, it's right over here. I'm just trying to find it. There it is. That's the hieroglyph for the 9 bows of Egypt. Sometimes it's 9 little lines, but most of the time it's just the bows. Okay, guys, thanks for watching. This was especially the size of okay, thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in to learn about the 9 enemies of Egypt. This is the article. If you want it, just message me and we'll go ahead and share it with you, no problem. So thanks again, all the best, and have a great weekend.